Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu anbiya wal mursalin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad Fatih lima khuliq wal khatir lima sabaq nasil haq bihaq wa hadi ila siratal mustaqim wa ala adihi haqqu daril azim. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh everyone. Wherever you are, may peace be upon you. Alhamdulillah, now we had reached the last day of Ramadan. MashaAllah, how time flies. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our tawbah and our ibadah. Ameen, insyaAllah. So today we continue again with Sidi Imam Talut class as usual every Saturday. Alhamdulillah. A bit of Imam Talut for those who may not know him for the first time you're watching this and listening to him. Imam Talut was born in America and right now he's in Mexico. He's doing a lot of work for the Mexican community. He translated a lot of books, Islamic books from English, Arabic to Spanish, mashallah. He had written a lot, he had done a lot of translation work on Shaykh Al-Tijani and other imams too, which is very important in today's situation for people to understand and practice and experience tasawwuf. He's also the Muqaddam of Shaykh Mahi Sisi. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Imam Sidi Talut to start his dars now. Tafadal, Imam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا همة الشيخ يحتري لنا بهذا المحضر ونتعطف نظرة تأتي لنا بالظفر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, we're going to continue. And last week, alhamdulillah, we reached in Bughiyatul Mustafid, we reached the end of the first topic, which was on the source of the knowledge of the people of Tasawwuf, or the source of the knowledge of the people of Allah, of the knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this, when we speak about that, that's the foundation of the knowledge of Tasawwuf. So before you can really appreciate what our Imams of Tasawwuf and what our Shaykhs have brought, and what they and really what they bring is from the Sharia. Shaykh Mahi Sisi, he always says, that the wali doesn't bring any new Sharia, any new legislation. He brings a new understanding. And so in order to appreciate what they have done, and to appreciate their path, and to respect their knowledge, one has to know the source of their knowledge. And so we established the source of their knowledge beyond any doubt. And so now we are ready to look at the essence of Tasawwuf. And the essence of Tasawwuf is the adab, the etiquettes, and the akhlaq, the character traits. These are this is the essence of Tasawwuf. And when we say it's the essence of Tasawwuf, it means that the Tasawwuf is in so many forms. It is made up of these etiquettes and these character traits. And so there's nothing of Tasawwuf that's free of etiquettes and character traits. And so there are different types of etiquettes when it comes to Tasawwuf. And the first type of etiquette is the etiquette, just the general etiquette of the people, that they try to perfect their character. And then the second type of etiquette is the etiquette with the Hadra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the third type of etiquette is the etiquette with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and with the Shaykh. And then beyond that is the etiquette with one's brethren in the path. And so, the bulk of this introduction to his work, Sidi Al-Arabi and Saih has devoted to these different etiquettes, and he's going to bring them one by one and explain them, inshallah, in a way in which one can understand the importance, and then one can take, some lessons on how to inculcate that character. And so we're going to start from the second topic. We made a start last week for the barakah, but we're going to start from the second topic again, and we're going to see on the reality of it, on some indications of the reality of etiquette by way of summary and clarification of its originator. Its originator is, from one point of view, it's Allah, because of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Addabani Rabbi fa ahsana ta'diba." My Lord, He educated me. He gave me education, or He taught me adab, and he taught me, and he it was an excellent education, and gave me excellent conduct. And so that's from one point of view. And the other point of view is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is this originator, as he is the one described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as, you have a tremendous righteous character. Innaka ala khuluqin azim. You have a tremendous righteous character. And so that's the originator, and it's a position with the people of perfection, and that is that they see it as the entirety of the path. And so Al-Arabi bin Saih, he says, whereas this Ahmadan path comprises such excellent etiquettes as can never be counted, and the majority of the matters for which the unintelligent fools repudiate it are built upon the realization of what is considered to be, in the view of the noble, intelligent folk, perfect etiquette, I prefer to that this topic should be included in the forward of this text, coming before all of its investigations, so that it can be like a glowing light, illuminating its destination and pathways. And then he continues, you should know that the perfect sheikhs and the realized and connected knowers of God have all agreed that the most important of all matters in the path of the people of Allah, exalted is He, and the sum of all good and righteousness is etiquette and good manners. And it regulates all works and acts of obedience. And it is the frame on which is built every station and state. And they have stated that if someone adheres to observing its methodology and all of that, he arrives and is connected. However, if he veers off from its path, from the path of etiquette, in any of that, he will be disconnected and separated. That is because all of the path is etiquette. The entire path is etiquette, just as has been mentioned. Every moment has its etiquette. Every state has its etiquette. Every station has its etiquette. So if someone adheres to etiquette, he will reach to where the men of God have reached. And if someone is denied etiquette, he is distant, even though he feels near, and rejected where he thought himself accepted. And there are other statements on etiquette that have been explicitly stated or clearly alluded to, some of which we will place in this chapter if Allah so wills. As for that which indicates the reality of etiquette according to the people of Allah, exalted is He, the foundation upon which the sheikhs, may Allah be pleased with them, have supported themselves and their explanations of its realities is that which is found in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, my Lord tutored me and he beautified my refinement. Then he ordered me to observe noble conduct. Addabani Rabbi fa ahsana ta'diba. ثم أمرني بمكارم الأخلاق. أدبني ربي فأحسن تعذيبا ثم أمرني بمكامل الأخلاق. My Lord tutored me, and he beautified my refinement, and then he ordered me to observe noble conduct. In Awarif al-Ma'arif, the author has said, etiquette is to the disciplined, is to be disciplined inwardly and outwardly. And when the slave has become disciplined inwardly and outwardly, he becomes refined. And the banquet has been called a banquet because it comprises beautiful things. So etiquette is not perfected in the slave except through the perfection of noble conduct within him. And the banquet has been called a banquet. This is a sort of play on words because ma'dabah, which means banquet, comes from the same root as adab. And so they are, he's uh, drawing a comparison between ma'daba, which has the same root as adab, and the beautiful things that it contains, and adab, which is from the same root, and the beautiful noble conduct that it comprises. Shaykh Muhyiddin, may Allah be pleased with him, has said, etiquette, etiquette is the sum of all good, and it is divided into four categories in the terminology of the people of Allah. The first category is that of the etiquette of the sacred law. It consists of the divine etiquettes that Allah exalted as He took it upon Himself to teach through prophetic revelation and saintly inspiration. It is this etiquette with which Allah educated His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is this etiquette with which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam educated us. Thus, the prophets, blessings and peace be upon them all, are cultured tutors. And it has been narrated in the hadith, indeed, Allah tutored me and gave me an excellent tutoring. Says the second category is that of the etiquettes of service. These are the etiquettes that the kings developed for those that serve them. And the king of the people of Allah is Allah exalted as He Himself. And He has legislated for us how to observe etiquette in His service. And it is our interacting only with Him and that which relates exclusively to Him to the exclusion of all His creation. And it is more specific than the etiquette of the sacred law because the sacred law combines the rights of Allah and the rights of creation. The third category is the etiquette with the truth, and it is to follow the truth no matter who manifests it. And it is to rule by it, to return to it in all matters, and to accept it and not reject it. And it is to not let oneself be forced by pride if one is greater in age or station from accepting the truth, should it come from someone that is lower in age or station. This is termed being unbiased. And the fourth category is the etiquette of reality. It is to abandon showing etiquette through your own effort and to return it all back to Allah exalted as He. And so these are the four categories of etiquette according to Shaykh Muhyiddin, who is Ibn Arabi al-Hatimi. May Allah be pleased with him. The first is the etiquette of the sacred law. The second is the etiquette of the service of service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third is the etiquette with the truth, and the fourth is the etiquette of reality. And Sidi Al-Arabi ibn Saih says, I say that his words to abandon showing etiquette mean to abandon witnessing one's own etiquette and not to abandon showing etiquette altogether, just as is the case with the terminology of the Shaykh anytime he mentions abandonment in his book, Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah. And Allah exalted as He knows best. So when he says abandon the etiquette of reality is to abandon showing etiquette through your own effort, it doesn't mean that you abandon showing effort. It means that you attribute all of that to Allah exalted as He, and not to and not to abandon it altogether. And one of the commentators of Al-Risala Al-Risala is the main fiqh book for someone who enters into the wait. So he's either referring to the main fiqh book of the people that enter into the Maliki madhab, or he's referring to Al-Risala al-Qushayriya, and it's probably the second one. And one of the commentators of Al-Risala has narrated from one of the men of God on the reality of the etiquette of the people of Allah, exalted as He, that it is the rectification of the senses, guarding one's breaths, and occupying oneself with contemplation of the works of Allah, exalted as He. And Awadif al-Ma'arif and Awadif al-Ma'arif, the author has narrated from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, that he may exalted as He, may Allah be pleased with him, said, people have given many opinions on etiquette, but what we say that it is not to know what we say, that it is to know oneself. Afterwards, the aforementioned author said, that is an indication from Allah, from Him, may Allah exalted as He have mercy on him, that the soul is the source of ignorance, and abandoning etiquette is from the effects of ignorance. So if the slave knows himself, he will find the light of Gnosis, as has been narrated in a traditional report. If someone knows himself, he knows his Lord. And because of that light, if the ego should manifest in any form of ignorance, he will immediately put it in check and show proper etiquette. And when a number of the great sheikhs gave an explanation of this traditional report, their words contain a clarification of what the author of Awadif al-Ma'arif quoted from our master Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, and the author's explanation of those words. Shaykh Muhyiddin al-Nuri, may Allah be pleased with him, has said in one of his books of fatwa, what can be summarized as follows: if someone knows himself as weak and in need of Allah, exalted as He, and as His slave, then he will know his Lord as having power, lordship, complete perfection, and exalted attributes. In other words, it's knowing your Lord through the opposite. So the slave of Allah, his entire attribute, his entire being is deficient. And so if the slave possesses all the attributes of deficiency, and Allah is the opposite of creation, then that means that Allah possesses all of the attributes of perfection. Shaykh Tajuddin ibn Ata'illah, may Allah be pleased with him, said in his Lata'if al-Minan, I heard our Shaykh Abu Abbas al-Mursi, may Allah be pleased with him, say, there are two interpretations of that hadith. The first is that if someone knows himself in lowliness, inability, and neediness, he will know Allah in his might, power, and independence from all else. In this case, the person will know himself first, and then he will know Allah afterwards. The second interpretation is that if someone knows himself, that knowledge indicates that he had already known Allah. The first instance is the state of the wayfarers, thus as-salikin, and the second is the state of the enraptured, the people of states. Al-Majdub. Shaykh Abu Talib al-Makki, may Allah be pleased with him, said in Qut al-Qulub, its meaning is that if you know the attributes of your soul in dealing with the creation, and that you hate that they should reject you in your actions or point out the deficiency in what you do, that you know from that the attributes of your creator, and that he also hates that. So be satisfied with his decree and treat him as you would like to be treated. And these words of Shaykh Abu Talib in his Qut which is the Mudawwana of the Sufis. Al Mudawwana is one of the main source books of Maliki fiqh. So he says that Qut al-Khulub is the Mudawwana of the Sufis. And so these words of Shaykh Abu Talib in that book are more explicit about the meaning, even if all the statements that we have mentioned rival one another in satisfying our objective, just as racehorses compete with each other. Shaykh Jalaluddin Suyuti has mentioned all these statements in response about this hadith after he has said about it that it is not an authentic prophetic report. And he narrated from An-Nuri, he's narrated what An-Nuri said about it in his book of Fatwas, that it has not been confirmed to be from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he mentioned that Az-Zarkashi also said in his book Al-Hadith Al-Mushtahara, Ibn Sam'ani mentioned that it is from the words of Yahya bin Mu'adh al-Razi. And so Al-Hadith Al-Mushtahara it has a longer title. These are books of hadith. So Al-Hadith Al-Mushtahara is a book about different hadiths that people have that have become famous amongst people. And he goes through it basically establishing whether it's authentic or not, and it's a good book to study for the student who is interested in hadith. Ibn Atta has said, etiquette is that you should bring every favorable act. He was asked, what is the meaning of that? He said, that you should deal with Allah in open and in secret with etiquette. Once you are like that, you will be refined, even if you are a foreigner. Then he recited, if she speaks, she utters every praise, and when she is silent, she brings every beautiful quality. And so he was talking about etiquette. When someone speaks with etiquette, then they speak with in a praiseworthy manner, and when they are silent, their silence is even beautiful. And we have witnessed this from many of our shuyukh, and many of us have witnessed this when we meet the shuyukh, that even just sitting there in their presence while the sheikh is silent, there's something being transmitted and there's something beautiful. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to never separate us from our shuyukh. And even though we are far, to keep our hearts joined together, because Allah said Allah will place us with the people that we love, just as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a person is with whom he loves. And the author of Awarif al-Ma'arif mentioned this story and how excellent is the statement of the one who said, etiquette is that the slave should be refined inwardly and outwardly. As for the outward, it is that he should be refined by the sacred law, by following the sunnah in word and deed. You should take heed here, where he says the outward is that you should be refined by the sacred law, by following the sunnah in word and deed. And so this is different than just following what you're supposed to do. It's different than just coming with whatever your obligations are. This is to enact the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether it is an emphasized sunnah or a recommendation, or whether it is something that he disliked, vehemently, or something that he only slightly disliked. And so you put that in practice in word and deed, so that you are following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this, we have to understand that we should stay away from the people who divide the sunnah, the acts of worship into the obligatory and the sunnah, so as to try and excuse themselves from the sunnah. So we should be careful with people who say, oh, such and such is only a sunnah. What do you mean? okay, so if we want to be on this path to Allah, then the etiquette, the most the apparent etiquette that we have to do is to try and put in the practice as much of the prophetic sunnah as possible, even things that he only did once or twice. And many of the scholars say, when you read a hadith about about something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did or encouraged, then you should immediately do that thing, even if you never do it again, so that you will have the blessing of having followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in that sunnah. This is one of the things that were emphasized on me by many of my hadith teachers. Specifically, one comes to mind. His name is Shaykh Muhtadun Chowdhury, and he taught me that whenever you read a hadith about something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged or something that he did, you should immediately try to put that thing in practice so that you have the blessing of following the sunnah. And so the outward being the etiquette, the outward refinement that comprises etiquette is that a person should be refined by the sacred law by following the sunnah in word and deed. As for the inward, it is through reality, which is that he should be satisfied with Allah, with what Allah causes to affect him, and that he shouldn't be accepting of it all. And so he should have rida. Rida, Sheikh Mahi said that, Sheikh Mahi Sisi said that rida is that you're satisfied with whatever Allah gives you. And so you're not just asking and then being okay with whatever Allah gives you. You don't even have whatever Allah gives you, whether you asked or not, you are satisfied with. And he should see that all of it is a blessing of Allah, exalted is He, upon him, either immediately or in the future. As for the immediate blessing, it is that the soul should achieve what it wants quickly. And the delayed blessing consists in different kinds of harms and odious matters for the slave, for he will be rewarded for them at a later time, and his sins will be lifted from him. And it is a blessing from that point of view. And we talked to Sheikh Mahi Sisi last week, regarding the coronavirus. And he after saying that is it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing himself in his majesty and power to human beings, and that it requires that we return to him and flee to him in tawbah, and that is the proper etiquette for us at this time. Then he said, because these things, they descend, as a punishment, or an affliction for the disbelievers, and that for the believer, it's a test by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, will remove, some of the things that, that he did that weren't correct. And so that's one of the ways that unpleasant things can be a blessing. And then Sidi Al-Arabi bin Saih, he continues, the person who possesses this level of etiquette is elected to be able to see the blessing hidden in difficulties. Thus, he will see the blessing of Allah upon him inwardly and outwardly. The Noah of Allah, Sidi Abdul Rahman ibn Muhammad al-Fasi, may Allah be pleased with him, in his notes upon the explanation of Sheikh Abdullah as-Sanusi of his own short text on Creed, he said, Sheikh Abdul Rahman ibn Muhammad said, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said in his exegesis and his tafsir of the words of Allah, exalted is He, and He spread His apparent and hidden blessings upon you, which is in Surah Luqman, verse 20. Ibn Abbas said, everything that the human being enjoys is an outward blessing, and every affliction that is difficult for them is a hidden blessing. In conclusion, these expressions with which these perfect sheikhs, may Allah be pleased with them, used to define and explain the reality of etiquette, return to the idea that what is meant by etiquette is that with which the slave refines the state of that which is between him and Allah. So that it is the refinement of the slave of his relationship with Allah exalted as he. That which is between him and his angels, his relation with the angels, his books, his relationship with the revelation of Allah, his messengers, his relationship with the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of mankind, and all of their categories and degrees. With that, if one were to contemplate it, he would find that the etiquette does not fall outside of the four categories that Shaykh Muhyiddin, may Allah be pleased with him, mentioned. And these four categories do not fall outside of two divisions: the etiquette of the jurists and the etiquette of the Sufis. And the former is included in the latter, such that they become a single division, just as has been just as the author of Jawahir al-Ma'ani has articulated. The text of the word, the text of his, the text of the author, or the words of the author, may Allah have mercy on him, are as follows. He said, etiquette, according to the jurists, is an allusion to that which is done after obligatory works, such as sunnahs, recommended and praiseworthy acts, all of which are associated with the different states of human beings, such as sleeping, walking, drinking, remembrance, supplication, etc. According to the Sufis, it is an allusion to every kind of good act and righteous attributes. And that is a description that joins together all the majestic attributes and praiseworthy conduct that correspond to the attributes of slavehood and majestic lordship. And if someone gathers them all, he will be refined and courteous with Allah exalted as he and with his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sidi Arabi bin Saih, he actually he continues. Then he said, the author of Jawad al-Ma'ani, Sidi Ali Harazim, said, the etiquette described in the first definition is included in the latter etiquette. So the etiquette of the jurists is included in the etiquette of the Sufis. And from this, it is known that the aforementioned hadith, my Lord tutored me, and he beautified my refinement, then he commanded me to observe noble conduct, is a fundamental principle that joins together all of these different definitions and comprises all of those divisions and indications. And by this, it is known that etiquette is to gather together noble conduct and acts, as well as beautiful attributes and traits in the most perfect way possible when dealing with Allah exalted as he, and when dealing with his slaves collectively and individually. And in all of that, he should uphold the limits placed by the sacred law. So in his etiquette, he should not adopt any of the etiquettes of the general populace, which is distance them from Allah exalted as he. While they, but and then Sidi Arabi bin Saih, he mentions a verse here. While they believe that they were doing good, Al-Kaf, Surah Al-Kaf, verse 104. And our master, Shaykh radiallahu anhu, Shaykh Al-Tijani radiallahu anhu, has said, just as has been reported in Jawad al-Ma'ani, he did not like to adopt any of the etiquettes of these etiquettes at all, of those that have been adopted by the general populace. Instead, he, may Allah be pleased with him, would limit himself to that which has been stipulated in the sacred law, and he would only adopt the conduct of the elevated prophetic sunnah. So we're just going to give a few comments on what has preceded. So when Sidi Al-Arabi bin Saih, when he says that he should uphold in all of his etiquettes, he should uphold the limits placed by the sacred law. This is explained by the fact that that etiquette gathers together all majestic traits, noble traits, and beautiful traits. And so from the majestic traits is that when the sacred law requires harshness, that one is harsh. And this doesn't mean that you have to be hard-hearted. This harshness is never devoid of mercy. Rather, the harshness comes from mercy itself. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the mercy to all creation. However, when someone contravened the sacred law, then he became a lion against them, and that is what is being said here. The other thing is that the not adopting the different etiquettes that people invent. Like some people they whenever the scholars enter the room, no matter what they're doing, they stand up for the scholars, and this is okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is only loosely based on the sunnah, and and this is different to kissing their hands and things like that. So that's one thing. The other things that people they do that do not come from the Islamic law. You should just leave it alone, especially in societies that are not Muslim. So we should not understand etiquette to mean that we are soft when we should be hard. It doesn't mean that when we should be firm. It doesn't mean that we are lenient with people just flaunting the conventions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set down for Muslims, and things that are known to be from Islam. It doesn't mean that we don't ever warn people about these things. Rather, it means that when required, one is firm, and he may even be a bit harsh, but if one is actually observing the etiquette of the sacred law, then it will always come from a place of mercy, just as it did with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So adab is not just being flimsy; it's to observe the proper right of every situation and of every moment of every situation, and every and the etiquette of being alone and the etiquette of company. Especially knowing who your company is, because everybody has their correct their different rights. So you don't treat it's not so you don't treat the king as you would the people that live in your household. No, you would show him a bit more respect. This is also from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he told Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, you should you should treat people according to their status. So we have to be cognizant of all these things, and we have to understand that the sacred law, it has times when it stipulates times when we should be lenient and times when we should be strict. And we should not go outside of that in order to satisfy, whatever the proper notions are in society. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sidi Khalid, inshallah. I think it's been about 40 minutes. And, we can see if there are any questions and if there were any questions from last week.
Assalamualaikum Sidi, mashallah. Important subject today. We learn etiquette, and I think a lot of times people take etiquette lightly, and somehow affect them even spiritually and mentally on the path to Allah. So I have one question. I have maybe 3 to 4 questions actually today. How do we understand we have proper etiquette in dealing with ourselves, with the Shaykh and the Murid, that we have that realization? Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming. That's coming. So the proper etiquette with the Shaykh, actually, I did a 2 days on Suhbah, and the recordings are with Faida Books. We did two 2 days on the etiquettes of Suhbah. And so we explained that there's Suhbah is of different types. There's Suhbah with every Muslim. And so the bare minimum with every Muslim is that you fulfill the 6 rights of a Muslim. That they are that you greet him, or that you return his greeting, that when he sneezes and says Alhamdulillah, you say Yarhamukullah, that you advise him sincerely, that you visit him when he is sick, that you follow his funeral, and that and there's one more that I always forget. Well, there's 6 rights of a Muslim that we should always try to observe with every Muslim, whether they are sinful or righteous. Those are their rights, and we have to adhere to that. And we said that when the companions, radiallahu anhum, some of them they lived to see the people of Bid'ah. And so they would not, they would not visit them. They would not, go to their funerals, and they would, take these steps. And we explained that these were not to be taken as Sharia. Rather, the companions were acting upon a different etiquette, and that is that if they were to mingle with the people of Bid'ah, then people would take the heresies and the heretical beliefs and actions lightly. And so in order for people to take it seriously, so some companions, they wouldn't, visit them, or they wouldn't give them salams and things like that. And so we don't act upon that. We act upon the fact that every Muslim has 6 rights. And we understand that, these things may be serious, but every Muslim has these 6 rights. And then, with Sahba, with the Murid, with the Shaykh, we said that it's a lot. We read in Jawad al-Ma'ani, we read some from Jawad al-Ma'ani, but it's in general, it comes back to Shaykh Mai. He gave us a summary. I told him one time, I said, Shaykh, we read that you must accompany your Shaykh at all times, and you must, always be with him. You must hear his directives. And how do we do this when the Shaykh is in one land and we're in another? And he gave the summary is that you are sincere in your love, and you don't let nobody, don't let anyone share, your heart for your Shaykh. The part of your heart that's for your Shaykh is only for your Shaykh and not for anyone else. That you're sincere in your love and that you don't disobey your Shaykh. So this is that's the etiquette with the Shaykh. And the etiquette with the Murids is that is the six things that you owe the Muslim, that every Muslim, and then you go above and beyond to making dua for him, in his absence frequently. And that you not consider yourself over him, that you consider yourself equal to every your all of the fellow murids. You're equals. You're not. And so we gave examples from some of the companions of Shaykh Al-Tijani radiallahu anhu, who would not give the wird and say, I am giving you the wird. They would remove themselves from the process, and they would give it. They would say, they would go to Shaykh Al-Tijani radiallahu anhu and say, I am this person wants to enter, and I am giving him based on the permission you have given me, so that they remove themselves, so that everybody's equal.
MashaAllah.
as a murid. And then, that you ask about them, that you ask the fellow murids, you ask their names, their father's names, where they live, their situation. And, so all of these things are from the etiquettes of Sahbah. And etiquette with yourself is that your limits. You know your limits. So if you can't do, fast every day, every other day, and then you don't do that. You try to start with 3 days a month. If you know that you can't keep up, the doing the Quran every 7 days, then do a juice. If you can't do a juice, then do 2 or 3 pages. That your limits, and that you don't stick to your limits. You try to do more, but at the same time your limits, and you don't surpass your limits, and that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the position that He has placed you. So
MashaAllah.
that's the etiquette with yourself.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Imam. MashaAllah, beautifully said. Um, Another question is etiquette with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through tribulation. And more, I mean, for the people of the path, we are always encouraged or said that we must have good opinion of Allah when it comes to tribulations. Even we lose the things that we love or someone we love. So the question here is, how do we cultivate that then? Like zikir or that kind of thing? What are the steps that we build that cultivate that good opinion on Allah, especially when we are becoming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Well, good opinion of Allah is based on your ma'rifah of Allah. It's based on your knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if you increase in ma'rifah, you will increase in good opinion of Allah. And Shaykh Mahi said that, if you increase in your love of Allah and your love of His people, you will increase in ma'rifah. And the way to increase your mahabbah, your love of Allah, is to adhere to your worship. And so to perfecting your worship, you will gain more love of Allah. Through love of Allah, you will gain more ma'rifah of Allah. And through ma'rifah of Allah, then you will gain a better opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one way. And this is the way that we as murids should take. This is because this has been set down by Shaykh Mahi as our Shaykh. But there's another way, and that is that you read, when there's a sign of affliction, then you read the verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. You read the verses of Allah's generosity. And so some people, they would say, oh, when there's affliction, you should read, the ayahs of Surah Al-An'am. I don't know them all, but they start with, وعنده مفاتيح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو. So that with Allah is the keys to the unseen, only He knows them. And so these things will increase your love of Allah, and you will and with love of Allah, you will increase, and you will never have a bad opinion of Allah if you love Him. When you think about it, when you love someone, if you truly love your wife, you will never have a bad opinion of her.
MashaAllah. Beautiful. Yeah, MashaAllah. The next question, we are mentioning all about etiquette because I think people are paying attention to what you teach, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Imam, this etiquette also is very important, as you mentioned just now in your class, your dars. Without etiquette, you get nowhere. You're lost in your nerves, something like that. So how about people who wants to be in the path? Like say someone who, okay, I want to be on the path, but the problem is I working shift and I will not be able to attend the halala or the wazifa together. But I want it. And I always ask Shaykh Mahi. He said it's okay, just give to them because they want it. And maybe in the future, Allah will open up for them and ease them their work and everything. So what was your advice be for them? Like they are low morale because they want it, but because of work and circumstances that is difficult. At the same time, they know the etiquettes of it. That you want to go, you have to go together. You know, growing together. Right? So what's your advice for such people? I'm sure you also facing it. You are in Mexico. And,
Yeah. So I mean, the for one thing, you should frequently do acts and donate the reward to your shuyukh and to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi
Sallallahu
wasallam,
Alaihi Wasallam.
because this will strengthen your connection. And where you feel that you're disconnected or a little bit far, then it will draw you near. That's the first thing. Secondly, you should try to do things that contain shukr, that contain gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this tariqah we have, Shaykh Al-Tijani radiallahu anhu, he gave a formula of doing Fatiha for shukr,
Mm.
where you intend to recite Fatiha for shukr, for all of the blessings of Allah, the inward and outward, that which you know, that which you don't know, the big and the small, that which came quickly and that which was delayed, and those that are permanent and those that are impermanent. And then you recite, Fatiha from 1 to 100 times for shukr. And that is an excellent, and you can start out with a number like 3 or 7,
Mm.
3 or 7 times a day. And, doing that will increase, your gratitude on the path, and will increase, it
Mashallah.
will help, inshallah.
Mashallah, Imam. Thank you very much. Next question is realizing that you do not have a good etiquette while walking on the path, and you are trying to rectify yourself, especially like you believe in the path, of course. You have yakin, but there's sometimes that you are triggered and you are confronted with certain situation that you make you feel like, oh, what is this? You know. So how do we be aware that the etiquette has to be validated, or is it to be sustained in every moment? How do one goes through that? How do one have that?
Well, so everything is a process. It's not, like somebody, for example, somebody who's a drunk, but really wants to recover. He doesn't quit drinking from today to tomorrow.
Mm.
He may go 5 days and then he'll have a relapse, and then he may go 6 days and have a relapse. And if he's really serious about it, then he'll continue until there are more days, between each relapse, until he leaves it all together. And the same, it's everything, every kind of development of good traits and leaving off bad traits is like that. And
Mm.
so there are sins that you may commit, and you may have been involved in your early life, and you may go years and years and years and then fall into it again. And then you make tawbah, and then maybe Allah will at that time will rid you of it completely, after he had rid you of it for so many years. And so this is the same. If you want to develop good etiquette, then you try to practice good etiquette, and you are aware where you fall short, and then you do tawbah, and as they say, you get back on the horse. You go right back to giving effort. So, and know that whatever it is in this path, that accomplishing it is only through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not through your own effort. So you
Inshallah,
give your effort and you ask Allah, to change it. Sheikh Ibrahim, he has a dua in Kanzal Awliya. He says that, this is our dua to you, and but responding to it and granting our dua, that is, for you to do. and this is our effort, meaning we are making the door is our effort, but our reliance is on you. And so we make effort to try and change our etiquettes and try to refine our etiquettes. And then we ask Allah to help us and to change it for us. And that, if we are giving effort and we ask Allah, then He will grant it.
Inshallah. I think this is the last question.
Okay.
And we have finished. I mean. So thank you very much. I think we're still compiling all the questions. And
Okay.
maybe one of the days we can ask all the questions to you.
Inshallah.
And before we end, we like to say Eid Mubarak to you. Thank you very much for your time and contributions. And may Allah bless you. Before we end, can you give us your dua, closing dua?
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Oh Allah, we ask you, just as you educated your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and gave him good conduct and excellent etiquette, we ask you to give us excellent etiquette and good conduct. And we ask you to refine our character. And we ask you to grant us the etiquette that it takes to be successful on the path. To grant us the proper etiquette with our brethren, and to grant us the proper etiquette with our shuyukh, and the proper etiquette with all creation. And not lastly and not leastly, we ask you to grant us the proper etiquette with your presence, and the etiquette that will mean only increase in your presence and not us being kicked out or decreased in your presence. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
Thank you, Imam. May Allah bless you. Next week is you, inshallah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum. Eid Mubarak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Eid Mubarak.
Alhamdulillah, we had finished the online dars with Imam Talut. MashaAllah, another profound session. Although it looks simple, but it has a depth into it. Please do not forget to contribute at any amount that you can for our hospital project, which is still ongoing. You can check the details at our Facebook and IG, inshallah. May Allah bless you on these remaining hours in Ramadan. Eid Mubarak to all of you. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.